Hello everyone and welcome to my channel. My name is Colleen, and if you haven't been here before, if this is your first visit, I hope that you will stick around and find something that's useful to you in the library of videos that I've already created. If you have any ideas about things that you'd like me to try, then please don't hesitate to write in the comments below. I will leave all the information about what I'm doing for all my videos in the description box that appears below. So today we're going to do something just a little bit different. Today I'm going to talk about, and we'll go through the process of recanning products that are already canned, that come in these giant cans that really none of us would be able to use up. Maybe if you had a really large family, you'd be able to use them like this, but this is 106 ounces. The net weight is 106 ounces. It's 6 pounds, 10 ounces. This is called a number 10 can, and they're used primarily for food service in the food service industry, which you can imagine because they're that large. I will get into the particulars of this after I've kind of gathered everything up, and we'll talk. Okay, I'll see you in a minute. I have everything gathered up that I think that I'm going to need for this video today. This is quite a simple process. Most people don't realize that you can recan certain foods if it comes in a container that's too big for your family. Now, I just want to talk a little bit about what foods would be good for recanning. Most fruits and things like tomatoes, all of these things are high in acid. You could recan sauerkraut if it came in big containers. You could recan ketchup and mustard and pickles, and that can be a real advantage. And I want to just talk about the cost of food today. And it has gotten so expensive that it's really hard for people to stay on their budgets, on their food budgets, or to even buy a better quality of food. I think a lot more of us are shopping at bargain stores where we can at least make our dollars work for us. And in our case is no different. I happen to be a canner and we have a small garden, but we certainly do not grow enough food to meet our needs. So we either have to purchase the food fresh and process it all, or you can do this. Now, I don't believe that there's a lot of nutritional value lost by doing this. This is safe to do if you follow the directions. So make sure that you do that. These large cans of food generally can be found, some of them I think even in the United States, you can buy some of the number 10 cans in Walmart. You can buy them at Aldi, you can buy them at Sam's Club. You can certainly buy them at restaurant supply stores. So generally speaking, it is way less expensive to buy them in this size container rather than, in a regular tin can. The reason for that probably is they don't need to use so many cans. I think that one makes the most sense. Generally speaking, anything you buy in bulk is a bit cheaper. In the case of these tomatoes that I'm going to can today, it's a lot cheaper. I can buy these very good quality tomatoes. We buy them at the Italian supply store in Calgary, which is the city closest to us. And these San Marzano tomatoes are considered to be one of the best tomato products in the world. This is an import from Italy. The tomatoes out of these cans are amazing, actually, for tomatoes that have been purchased. The ingredients on the label, and it's really important to read the labels of the products that you're going to purchase. The ingredients are whole peeled tomatoes and tomato puree. There's no additives. There's nothing else in them. They're just tomatoes, which is how I like to cook. That one ingredient, or closest to one ingredient, is the best way to cook, in my opinion. So I've never been afraid to buy a tomato, but this is definitely the tomatoes to buy. This can cost me $5.99, and I should be able to get 5 small jars. The issue being here, there's no issue with the product, but when you can find tomatoes on sale, but you're not going to find the tomatoes that happen to be as high a quality product as this one. So recanning allows you to have a better quality of food for the same price. When I priced out the San Marzano tomatoes in the can, I believe they were $2.19 for a regular can. So this is definitely a savings to do it this way. I think that the value, there's a couple values here. First, your money, and then second, just the fact that you have been able to put these wonderful products away yourself in your own cupboard. I think there's value in that. If you have only a small food budget, this is not just a way to stretch it, but it's also a way to help you with some food security, because you're going to be able to pack some things away into your cupboard, even if you don't grow a garden, and even if you can't afford the food that's being offered at the farmer's market. And I'm not saying that there isn't great value at the farmer's market, because if you've ever tended a potato plant all summer long, you know that if somebody else is growing it, it's worth what you're paying for it. So, that being said, let's get to the process. Now, I am going to, I've seen others do this process who do not heat their products that they're recanning through, and in some instances I don't. But for tomatoes, I like to heat them through. I've got my canner coming to temperature on the stove, so it's going to come to a slow simmer. I got a new canner, just a new water bath canner I'm pretty excited about, because the old canner that I had was my husband's grandmother's canner, and it finally got one of those pits in the bottom, you know, the kind that's going to spring a leak. Now we're going to keep in mind, if you're using a canner like mine, this is a very, very sharp edge, and you could be cut, so please be very careful there. And I am just going to put this right into a big pot, and I'm going to try and do it carefully, although there's no really good way to do this. Did you get some on you? Because it certainly went across the kitchen. And now, I wish I could show you these beautiful tomatoes. Maybe you can see them right there. They're beautiful. They're small tomatoes. They're picked and canned at the height of freshness. These are whole tomatoes. The sauce that's around them is beautiful. So now I'm going to put them on the stove, and I'm going to bring them up just to the simmer. While the tomatoes come to the simmer, I thought I would talk to you about other things that you can do and the timing of this product. So definitely things, I don't know if you've ever been shopping at Costco or some of those big stores where you see these large cans of tomato ketchup or mustard or barbecue sauce or salsa, applesauce even, can come in these giant cans. Now, one way that you can determine whether or not those are things that you can safely water bath can is to get out your canning book. I have a Bernardin canning book. Bernardin is the equivalent company. I think they maybe share, the product is the same. It's just different names in Canada and the US. In Canada, it's Bernardin. In the US, it's the Ball. I'm going to get my Ball book, or my Bernardin book, and so that you can see what I'm talking about. Here I have my Bernardin Complete Book of Home Preserving. I believe if you look on the cover of the Ball book, it's very similar, if not the same picture. And I am just looking for basic tomato recipes. So how to can a tomato, what the basic process is. And in the This book, I'm looking at the basic tomato sauce, which this isn't. It has no additives. But it says that for quarts, we can them 40 minutes. And for pints, we can them 35. And I've had a look at tomato juice, and it's canned for 30. I feel that it's quite safe to stick to 30 minutes. Almost everything that I recan, I stick to 30 minutes. There are a couple of things that I don't believe need that long, so I don't. Maybe 20 minutes on some of them, especially if they have vinegar, like pickles and salsa, because it contains vinegar, or high acid. If you're ever in doubt about whether or not you can recan any of these items, then definitely spend some time over at Rose Red Homestead's page, because she is doing some fabulous work over there. I admire her very much, and she can teach you the science that I don't know, the science behind everything and how we can keep it safe. I go by instinct mostly, but I definitely follow my books. If it says in the book that I should can something for X amount of time, if I open a can, then that's the time that I'm going to follow, because you just can't beat that. And I don't think that it breaks the food down anymore. There are some things that are delicate, like peaches and apricots. If you can afford to buy a better brand of them, do, because otherwise they've already been highly processed, so they'll get really mushy. But think about the end result. If you're going to make a cobbler from your peaches anyway and not serve them as a beautiful spiced dessert, if they're cooked a little more, it's not going to make a difference. And this can save you a whole pocket full of money. So I hear my lids back there coming to a boil. I want to stop them from boiling. So I'm going to shut them off, and I notice that the tomatoes are hot. So here we are. That process took about 5 minutes to get them steaming hot. And I've turned down my canner because it was getting a little bit ahead of me, so I've turned it down because I want these things to be about the same temperature when they're going in there. I don't want to break up the tomatoes too much, so I'm not giving them too vigorous a stir. I'm going to try and keep them whole. I'm going to can them today in pint jars. These are narrow jars. What do they call these? My brain has gone into a cramp. They're regular mouth jars, and I prefer to can things like these tomatoes that you want to have whole. I prefer to can in wide mouth, but I don't have a lot left, and I'm saving them for a specific reason, so it might take me a little more time, but this is how I'm going to do this today. And we definitely want to make sure that we're getting sauce in the jars as well as tomatoes, because, and keep an eye on the product. I just noticed as this went in here that they missed one of the tops, taking the top out of the tomato, so I'm just going to remove it. Yeah, so keep an eye on the product as it's going into the jars. Because of expansion, I fill them to the 1 inch, but I think for water bath canning, you can get away with ½ an inch, because the product isn't going to be heated to its highest temperature. And one of the problems with canning that we don't talk about is that we get a lot of siphoning when the food is heating, because the air in the food is trying to escape the jar. It's the hot air. So oftentimes, if you bring the food to a high simmer, almost a boil, before it goes into the jars, things like apples, I'm thinking about, fruit like that, the heat, well, heat makes things expand. The heat from the apples, it heats, oh my gosh, I'm not doing a job of explaining this. The apples are very porous, and so they have a lot of air in them. So when you heat them up, the air expands outwards, which causes siphoning to happen, because there's not enough room in the jar for all of the air that's being heated. So if you heat all of the apples beforehand and put them in hot jars into a hot canner. You'll have less. I think we will end up here with 6 jars, it looks like. I'm sure you could have figured this all out if you're good at math. You'll figure out how many jars you need. Whoop! Got me that time. Now I have my 6 jars filled. I'm going to run around the rims because some of them got a bit untidy. And I am going to just ladle a little more into some of these. And kind of tidy up as I go along. Now I have all of the jars filled and the rims have been cleaned, and I am just going to put the seals on. And I think if you've been watching me for a while, you know that I use 4 jar seals because I find them to be fabulous. I know for my canning friends in Canada, they're not necessarily a high value because the shipping from the United States to Canada on them is quite high. And I've looked into it and I don't think that there's any way to make that better. But I do love this product, so if you're watching from the United States, do consider going over to 4 jars. I'll have a link below in the description box to send you in the right direction. One of the things I love about them, besides the fact that I have had 100% success with them, not any siphoning, not any bent lids, but I like the fact that they're working hard to be family friendly. They're a family of people who are working hard to provide us with a really great product. So now I have them all ready to go. I am going to just put them into the canning kettle, and I will show you the product at the end, but I think that you can see these beautiful jars right here. And when I come to the canning kettle, I'll show you what that looks like as well. I hope you've learned something in this process. I know that lots of people would maybe not have given this a try previously because they didn't know whether or not it was safe. But yes, if you are treating the product properly, it is safe to can high acid foods in a recan high acid foods in a water bath canner. This process isn't safe for things like meat and cheese and vegetables that are not high acid. You would have to figure out how to acidify them first, and I haven't been able to figure that out yet. But they are really good for the things that I mentioned previously. Anything that is high acid, you can recan. So I'm just going to put these into the canner, but before I do, I just wanted to say thank you so much for coming along with me every week. I never expected that so many of you would appreciate having me come into your kitchen or your living room and talk to you about the things that I do. And I'm really grateful that you're here. I want to also say that all of the directions for all my videos are in the description box below. And if you're having trouble finding that description box, if you're on your PC, it is an arrow over to the right hand side of your screen, and it just points down. And if you're on your phone, it's the same thing. It's a faint little arrow that points down, and if you click on that arrow, the description box opens up. And I hope that you will come along again on my next crazy little adventure, and that you've learned something today, because I really want to bring you things that are useful to you in your household. So until next time, folks, take care, and I will see you again really soon. Bye-bye.